Thanks, Andrew. All right, am I good with the audio? Can you guys hear me all right? I'm switching mics, so. All right, so my name is Brandi Bollinger, and I am a team engagement manager with the REC Foundation. I cover 13 states in the upper Midwest and New England. I'm originally from Michigan. That's where I live right now. And as I said previously, I've been a coach for a long time. I started coaching robotics in 2007. My background is actually in education. Before coming to the foundation, I was a preschool teacher. I taught 3- and 4-year-olds. So when I think about the things that I do for the REC Foundation, I try to keep educators, parents in mind, but also kind of try to put into that my 2 cents of my experience as a coach and what resources I thought that I needed as a coach and give those resources to you. So on my team, I am the organization person. I'm not an engineer. I don't help build robots. I don't code robots. I do nothing with robots. I actually, admittedly, did not know how to program a robot. I had never, ever programmed a robot until I started working for the REC Foundation 2 years ago. So if that's not a testament to anyone can be a coach and how student-centered teams can be, I don't know what is. So this is my presentation on creating team contracts and why team contracts can help you as a coach, whether you are a brand new coach coming into this or you are a coach that has been doing this for a decade. I hope that you'll be able to think about or take some of this away and think about how it could positively affect your team. So we're going to talk a little bit about team member roles and how it's important for you as a coach to define some of the roles that are on your team for students, parents, and coaches, how to document expectations for those people, and then I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to develop some big picture documents and give you some suggestions on what you can include in your team contracts. So why is it important to have a team contract? Because inspiring people is good. Building robots is fun, but building robots in a conducive learning environment is a lot funner. So effective teams tend to have expectations for their students. When you go to competitions and you see teams that know what they're doing, they know where they're supposed to be, they know what they're supposed to be doing, those students have an opportunity to learn a lot more. So a team contract can kind of establish that and then also encourage student-centered behavior and help you as a coach enforce the student-centered code of conduct. I know me as a coach, when I've run across issues with parents not wanting to follow the rules or being overly involved with their students, there's not a way to stop that unless you have them sign a contract that saying that they understand their expectations. So how can this be helpful? My school, when I came to them and said, hey, I'm developing this team contract, I'm gonna have all of my students, my parents, everybody sign this, they were ecstatic because not only was I protecting me, I was protecting them as well. This allowed them to take me more seriously as a coach and in our organization kind of take our whole idea of running a robotics team a lot more seriously. It created a lot less anxiety and stress for me because I now had a way to say, hey, you know this is what the policy is, you know what the expectations for you are, and you can follow them. So the only thing that's a little bit different is teaching your students and your parents and the other coaches on your team to live by this contract, to create a culture on your team where living by this contract is the only way to be. And then the most important part about this to me is no team contract should ever be copy-paste. You can't just go on the internet and be like, oh, this looks like a good team contract, copy paste, have everybody sign it, and you're good to go. The idea of steal from the best and design the rest. That what works for me and my team might be different than what works for you and your team. And that is totally based on the resources that you have available to you, which could be, money, time, coaching, students, facility access, distance that you're traveling to things. All of those things are resources that are important and should be taken into consideration. So here are some items that you could consider putting into your contract. Attendance. We as coaches can determine what is mandatory and what is optional. So for us on my team, we only have like 3 or 4 mandatory events a year. for all of my parents and students, and normally these revolve around money and legal documents. So maybe your school requires to have an extra duty form filled out for your students to be there after school, or to use equipment, to use, if you're using saws or anything like that in the VRC program, you might have to have a release of liability from your school signed for those things. That's a mandatory thing. So I have a mandatory meeting where I hand the parents all of these contracts. You're thinking to yourself, well, Brandi, the REC Foundation is student-centered. Why are you giving these things to adults? Because in some respects, these are legal binding documents, and the adults need to see them. If I just give them to students, especially if you coach smaller children, they're going to get lost. They're going to end up in the bottom of backpacks. Yeah, if you coach high school, your students are going to forge signatures. They're going to forget to give them to their parents, whatever it is. Giving these documents to the parents is important, so I create mandatory meetings to hand out these documents. Transportation. Who's responsible for taking your students to and from events, taking them to and from practices, taking them to and from team meetings, laying that all out on there. You consider a policy of how much grace time are you going to give parents before, how early can they drop off their kids before the official start time? How late can they stay after the end of the meeting? We have like a 10-minute thing where I tell my parents you cannot drop them off more than 10 minutes early, and please pick them up within 10 minutes at the end of the meeting. Materials, who can use what and where? Does your team have a policy on whether or not your materials can leave your build facility? Do you as a coach allow your students to take materials home to work on outside of team meetings? Who has use to what and where? So for me as a coach, we assign a brain, a controller, a battery charger, a radio, and a certain number of motors to each team. I get out my label gun, put labels on all of them. It has my team number, 2337A, B, C, D, whatever, and I give those to them, and then all of the rest of our materials are common supply. Students can use it from there, but putting in there, in my team contract, take only what you need and put back what you don't use, so that they can be available to other students on the team. Now, the next 5 things on this list should look familiar to you if you have read the Student-Centered Policy and the Code of Conduct. I turned those off. All right, so having these 5 things on here have saved me so much headache as a coach, because there are students who say, I didn't know I was supposed to read the Student-Centered or Code of Conduct, parents who didn't read it, coaches who didn't read it. Everyone thinks because it says student-centered that it's only for the students. But all of these documents also talk about what is and is not acceptable for adults too. So I include the core values of the REC Foundation Student-Centered Policy and the Code of Conduct in my team contract. All right, so why is it important to have parent and coach expectations? Children on a team, whether they are high schoolers, middle schoolers, elementary schoolers, love a challenge. Think about us as a society, right? Playing flag football is super fun, but even we as adults like competition. We watch football on television. I don't, because I'm not a sports football person, but you all might, I don't know. We all love competition. We love expectations. We love having goals. We as people in a society thrive on being better, doing better and doing more. So setting expectations for the people on your team is super valuable, because in most cases, they're not just going to meet an expectation that you set for them, they're going to work to exceed it. They want to be successful. So setting these expectations for parents, students, and coaches is all important. Your team contract can help you do that. For me, defining the difference between what a parent helper is or a coach helper is important, because then they can't take over and do things that they shouldn't be doing. So what does a contract look like? If I'm going too fast and I have any questions in the chat, by the way, feel free to interrupt me, or if you guys have any questions. So what does a contract look like? And again, going back to what a contract looks like for you and what a contract looks like for someone else should be different. As the REC Foundation, We want people to think about these things. What are the expectations for parents, coaches, and students? We have released our documents of what we expect of those people. But in addition to that, what do you as coaches want to include? Then just logistically, legally, a place for them to sign. At the bottom, a thing to write your name, just like you see on every other legal document or contract anywhere. Then you need to think about, are you going to do physical copies? Are you going to do digital copies? And do you have a way for parents to have access to these documents once they've submitted to you? So if you are doing paper copies like we do on my team, where I print them off and I hand them to the parents, you need to have a digital copy or an additional paper copy for them, because once they sign that and they turn it in, it's out of their mind. They completely forgot what they signed. Like, they have no idea. So how are you going to make those documents accessible for them once you have obtained an official copy from them? You as a coach need to have a safe place to store physical or digital copies. Your school might actually have regulations on where you have to keep information that has any kind of signatures, birth dates, student information, emergency contact information, anything like that. There's a coach that I talked to that said their school requires them to keep it in a fireproof, locked safe at the school, all of this information. Where me on my team, I put all this in a 3-hole punch it, put it all in a binder, and I have a cabinet that only I have access to for all of this information. And then other adults on the team who might need it have access to. Who's distributing this? Is this going to be, does it have to be your primary or secondary contact? Does it have to be an administrator at your school? What is your organization's policy on who has to distribute this and who can collect it? Then the next one is thinking about your schedule. Are you a team that has a registration deadline? Now, the REC Foundation has a team deadline of December 15th this year. You have to be registered by December 15th. Now, does that mean that your team's roster has to be finalized by then? No, it doesn't. You can still add and subtract students. So you as a coach, are you going to say, you must join my IQ team by, December 15th, or are you going to let it roll all the way to wherever? So do you have a deadline for your contracts or not? So the takeaway for this is that coaches, that you guys are the leaders of the team. You are the ones who are setting the course for what your season is going to look like. You are the ones who are responsible for coming up with reasonable expectations for your students, for your parents, for your coach helpers on your team. You are the one who has the ability to create a conducive learning environment that is inspirational to those people. You are responsible for creating an environment that people want to come to. For the sustainability of your school, for the sustainability of your organization, for the ability of your students to be able to learn, that's on you. You're the coach. For students, realizing that your coaches want to support you and they're not just giving you paperwork as busy work, they're doing it so that you have more learning opportunities and that you are having to take responsibility for them. They're teaching you things in the process of this, but you have to take ownership. You have to be the one to take hold of all of the resources that your coaches give to you and do something with them. Then parents, you are the connection between your child and the team. When you're at home, the coach is not there. You are there as the parent. You are the one who's teaching your student, your child, how to meet these expectations, how to exceed these expectations, and to support and encourage them to learn and do great things. REC Foundation teams, like XIQ teams and VRC teams, they're student-centered. Students have the ability to do anything. Like, the sky's literally the limit. Like, we were talking earlier today about some of the game, like the IQ game, and about how there's something for every team to do. That beginning team who's never built a robot has a task that is a contribution to this game. The team who's been doing this, they're 8th graders and they've been doing this since they were in 1st grade and they are experts at this, there's a challenge for them in this game. As parents, we are responsible for encouraging our students and opening their eyes to all of the opportunities that are available to them and assist them in taking advantage of this. And having a partnership with the coaches on your team and knowing what the expectations are is the best thing that you can do for your student. Joe. Yeah, ask Mr. Barker and Mr. Dolan where they'd like me to put them, and I'll put them there for you. Yeah. Or, I don't think this one, yeah, this one is posted. If maybe you go to like the Michigan workshop, Michigan Coaches and EP workshop on robot events, if you search for that workshop, they, I don't know, might already be posted there. Okay, do we have other questions about this? Because I think I was wrapping up at 11:30, right, Aaron? I think that's what the agenda said. It was 11:30 for me. It's 11:29. Do we have other questions in the chat? All right, so we are going to take a quick pause while we transition presenters. This is a great opportunity if you need to get up and stretch your legs, use the restroom while we get the next person set up.